Some villains want world domination, some want revenge, some just want power. But these eight crashed out over things so small, so embarrassingly avoidable, that calling them villains almost feels generous. And yet here we are. These are the most invalid crash outs in animation history. Kicking things off with the man, the myth, the emotional wreck, Ken. Now on paper, Ken is just a regular guy. He has a girlfriend, an apartment, a yogurt night. Life is fine. Life is good. And then a bee shows up. Not a threatening bee, not a dangerous bee. A small, talking, legally employed bee named Barry, who somehow charms his way into Ken's relationship and never leaves. Barry starts hanging around Vanessa more and more. Dinners, legal consultations, long, meaningful conversations. And Ken, poor, bewildered Ken, watches all of this happen from the sidelines like a man slowly losing his grip on reality. Does he have a calm, adult conversation about it? He does not. Instead, Ken escalates. First, it's passive aggression. Then, it's full hostility. Then, the man is actively trying to murder a bee with a tennis racket in his own living room. His girlfriend is defending the bee. The bee is smirking at him, and Ken is standing there, rage-filled and unraveling, because an insect has replaced him in his own home.
My nerves are fried from riding on this emotional roller coaster!
Here's the thing though, Ken's not entirely wrong. His girlfriend canceled yogurt night for a bee. She became the bee's personal lawyer. She chose the bee. Ken didn't crash out over nothing. He crashed out over everything. He just happened to be losing to something with 6 legs and no vertebrae. Embarrassing.
Oh, that bee is living my life!
But also somehow understandable, which is exactly why he's number 8. But if Ken crashed out over a romantic rivalry with a bee, number 7 crashed out over something even more personal and built an entire empire around it. Meet Lotso, a strawberry-scented teddy bear who looked like the kind of toy that comes with a motivational quote on the box. Warm, soft, approachable, absolutely not to be trusted. Because underneath all that plush and that permanent smile was a bear who had decided, after one bad day, that the entire world needed to suffer with him. And what was that one bad day exactly? He got left behind. His owner Daisy lost him on a road trip, got a replacement Lotso, and moved on. That's it. That's the whole origin story. Now look, being replaced hurts. Nobody is arguing that. But most people process that kind of pain and eventually move on. Lotso did not move on. Lotso went home, saw his replacement, and immediately decided that love was a lie. Loyalty was an illusion.
No, she only replaced you.
She replaced all of us, didn't she?
And the appropriate response was to build a toy prison and run it like a mob boss. He didn't just crash out personally, he crashed out on behalf of every toy in that daycare. Told them they were all replaceable, told them nobody was coming for them, built an entire philosophy of misery around one afternoon he had a bad time.
You all get ready. You got a play date with destiny.
And the worst part? He knew he was lying. Big Baby still had his original owner's name written on him. Lotso saw it every single day and chose bitterness anyway. A strawberry-scented bear running a daycare dictatorship because a little girl got a new toy.
We're all just trash, waiting to be thrown away. That's all a toy is.
The audacity, the dramatics, the sheer commitment to the chaos. Number 7, and it's not even a debate, but at least Lotso's damage stayed inside one daycare. Number 6 took her crash out citywide. Now, Bellwether. Sweet, soft-spoken, cardigan-wearing Bellwether. The kind of character you see on screen and immediately think, oh, she's the helper, she's the ally. She's the one who brings the protagonist a warm cup of tea and a word of encouragement when things get tough. And for a while, that's exactly what she is. Judy's biggest supporter, the underdog cheering on the underdog. 2 small animals in a big city, just trying to be taken seriously. It's wholesome, it's heartwarming, it's completely fake. Because behind that soft voice and those oversized glasses was a sheep who had spent years being dismissed, overlooked, and underestimated by the predators running Zootopia.
Sounds tough.
And had decided, quietly and methodically, that the appropriate response was to engineer a full, citywide biological attack and frame every predator in the city for it. Not a strongly worded letter, not a protest, not even a mildly aggressive op-ed. A biological weapon deployed through a dart gun with a smile.
Fear always works. And I'll dart every predator in Zootopia to keep it that way.
Yeah.
What makes Bellwether's crash out so uniquely unhinged is how calculated it was. Ken lost his temper. Lotso fell apart emotionally. Bellwether made a spreadsheet. She had a plan, a motive, a scapegoat, and a backup story, all while playing the role of the most harmless character in the entire film. The wool wasn't just on the sheep, it was over everybody's eyes. And for what? Because the Rams at the top table didn't respect her enough.
We're on the same same team, Judy. Underestimated, underappreciated.
Because she was tired of being the small one in the room. Because she wanted power and decided the fastest route was to make everyone else afraid. Bellwether didn't just crash out. She crashed out in a blazer with a press release ready. Number 6, and honestly, a little terrifying. But as calculated as Bellwether was, number 5 didn't need a plan. He just needed a rejection letter and 15 years of free time. Syndrome. Born Buddy Pine, a kid who loves superheroes so much he showed up uninvited to Mr. Incredible's crime scenes with homemade rocket boots and a dream. Genuinely enthusiastic, genuinely talented, genuinely not taking no for an answer. And that was the problem, because Mr. Incredible did say no, firmly, publicly.
I work alone.
4 words, 1 sentence, a boundary that any reasonable person would have respected, filed away, and eventually moved on from. Buddy Pine was not a reasonable person. Instead of moving on, Buddy went home, sat with that rejection, and somewhere between the rocket boots and the rage, made a decision. Not to prove Mr. Incredible wrong by becoming a hero on his own terms, not to channel that genius into something meaningful, no.
All I wanted was to help you.
I only wanted to help. And what did you say to me?
Fly home, buddy. I work alone.
He decided to dedicate the next 15 years of his life to building weapons specifically designed to kill superheroes, eliminate every single one of them one by one, then fake a robot attack so he could swoop in and look like the hero he was never allowed to be.
And when everyone's super,
No one will be.
15 years for one rejection from one man who told him to go home. And the wildest part? Syndrome was genuinely brilliant. The technology he built from scratch was more advanced than anything the superheroes had. The Omnidroid alone was a masterpiece of engineering. He could have patented half of it and retired wealthy at 30. Instead, he built a kill list. He also kidnapped Mr. Incredible's baby at the end.
the baby's sleeping.
Are you finished?
Just to really make sure everyone understood that he was not okay. Syndrome didn't crash out because he was evil. He crashed out because he never learned how to handle rejection, which honestly is the most relatable villain origin story on this entire list, and somehow also the most unhinged. Number 5. But number 4 didn't need a rejection to crash out. He just needed a crown and a brother who breathed wrong. Scar, the original animated villain with a superiority complex and a vocabulary that made every other character in the Pride Lands feel slightly underdressed for the conversation. Sophisticated, theatrical, genuinely funny in the way that only truly dangerous people are, and underneath all of that wit and elegance, absolutely seething. Now here's the thing about Scar's crash out that people conveniently forget. He was already royalty, already living in the Pride Lands, already one of the most powerful lions in the kingdom by default. He wasn't some outsider clawing his way up from nothing. He was next in line. All he had to do was wait. But Mufasa had a son, and that son, a cub, a literal child, jumped the queue just by being born. And Scar, a fully grown adult lion with functioning patience available to him, looked at that situation and chose murder. Not exile, not scheming his way into a political alliance, not waiting for Mufasa to naturally, eventually, one day, die. Murder. Immediate, premeditated, ice-cold murder of his own brother.
Long live the king.
Followed by a psychological warfare campaign against a traumatized child that was so effective the kid ran away and didn't come back for years. The execution alone deserves a moment of silence. Scar didn't just crash out, he crashed out with choreography. The Wildebeest Stampede was practically a production. He had the hyenas on payroll. He had a villain song. He had a whole monologue prepared for the moment Simba showed back up. This man was committed to the chaos in a way that is genuinely hard not to respect even while being appalled by it. But here's what makes it invalid. He could have just waited. Mufasa wasn't immortal. The throne was already in the family. Scar had time, intelligence, and proximity to power, and he threw all of it away because he couldn't stand being second. Number 4. But if Scar crashed out over a throne, number 3 crashed out over a piece of paper. Tai Lung, the most gifted fighter the Valley of Peace had ever seen. Trained from infancy by Master Shifu, pushed to his absolute limit every single day, told repeatedly that he was destined for greatness, that the Dragon Scroll was his, that everything he was working toward was coming. Just wait, just be patient, just keep training. And then Oogway said no. One tortoise, one decision, one moment where the universe tapped Tai Lung on the shoulder and said, actually, not you.
No means no.
And Tai Lung, a man who had spent his entire life being told he was the chosen one, did not take that well. What followed was one of the most disproportionate responses in animation history. Tai Lung didn't petition the decision, didn't train harder to prove himself, didn't sit with the disappointment like a functioning adult.
Who filled my head with dreams? Who drove me to train until my bones cracked? Who denied me my destiny?
He attacked the Jade Palace, took on an entire army of kung fu masters by himself, got defeated, and locked in a prison so maximum security it had its own dedicated guard and 1,000 feet of drop on every side, and then escaped 20 years later purely on the strength of residual rage. 20 years in prison, and the man came out angrier than he went in. No reflection, no growth, no moment of thinking. Maybe I should reconsider my approach. Just an immediate, direct march back to the Valley of Peace to collect a scroll he was told he couldn't have. And that scroll, when Poe finally opens it, it's blank.
It's blank. What?
There was nothing in it. The power was never in the scroll. It was always inside the warrior. Tai Lung spent 20 years in a maximum security prison, fought through an army, nearly destroyed the valley for a blank piece of paper. Number 3. And yet somehow, the next two characters still managed to make him look reasonable. Number 2 didn't crash out over a scroll. He crashed out over a song. Ernesto de la Cruz, the most beloved musician in all of Mexico, a legend, an icon, a man whose face was on every poster, every shrine, every candle in the country, adored by millions, celebrated across generations, literally worshipped in the land of the dead where fame is the only currency that keeps you existing. By every measurable standard, Ernesto de la Cruz had won, completely, overwhelmingly. There was nothing left to want. And yet, here's what actually happened. Ernesto's entire career, every song, every melody, every lyric that made him a legend belonged to his best friend, Hector. Hector wrote the music. Hector had the talent. Hector was the reason any of it existed in the first place. And when Hector decided he was done touring and wanted to go home to his family, Ernesto made a decision. He poisoned him, quietly, efficiently, over a toast, like a man who had clearly thought about it before. Then he took the guitar, took the songs, took the legacy, and spent the next several decades being celebrated for work that was never his. Built an empire on a dead man's catalog, smiled for every photo, accepted every award, gave speeches about passion and following your dreams, dreams he had literally stolen from the man he murdered. And when a 12-year-old boy shows up in the land of the dead with proof of all of this, Ernesto doesn't reflect, doesn't confess, doesn't have a single moment of genuine remorse. He throws the child off a building. He threw a child off a building to protect his Spotify numbers in the afterlife.
Apologies, old friend, but the show must go on.
The scale of Ernesto's crash out is almost poetic. He didn't crash out in a moment of rage. He crashed out in a moment of cold, calculated ambition, and then spent a lifetime pretending it never happened. Number 2 on this list, and the only villain here who made murder look like a career move. But even Ernesto, for all his cold-blooded audacity, at least had something real to protect. Number 1 crashed out over something so small, so genuinely microscopic in the grand scheme of things, that it almost loops back around to being admirable. And here we are, number 1, the most invalid crash out in animation history, the gold standard, the benchmark by which all other animated meltdowns should be measured from this point forward. Turbo. For those who need a refresher, Turbo was the biggest star in the arcade.
I'm Turbo, the greatest racer ever!
The main character of his own racing game, Turbo Time, where kids lined up daily just to watch him race. He was fast, he was flashy, and he knew it. Life was good, life was great, life was everything. And then a new racing game showed up. Road Blasters rolled into the arcade, kids gravitated toward it, and the attention slowly shifted away from Turbo Time. Not permanently, not catastrophically, just shifted. The way attention naturally does when something new arrives. A normal, everyday, completely manageable inevitable occurrence that happens to every person, every product, and every arcade cabinet eventually. Turbo did not manage it. Instead of adapting, instead of accepting that sometimes the spotlight moves, Turbo abandoned his own game mid-operation and inserted himself into Road Blasters. Uninvited, unannounced, just showed up inside someone else's game and started racing. The result? Both games crashed. Both got unplugged. Multiple game characters lost their homes because Turbo could not emotionally process sharing an arcade with a competitor. But here's where it transcends from a crash out into an all-time legendary unraveling, because Turbo didn't stop there. When Wreck-It Ralph begins, decades have passed, and Turbo, presumed gone, presumed finished, had secretly infiltrated Sugar Rush, a candy-themed racing game, brainwashed the entire population, rewritten the game's code, erased the real ruler's existence, installed himself as King Candy, and had been sitting on that throne for years, ruling a kingdom in a children's racing game because he couldn't handle being unplugged.
Because of you, Ralph, I'm now the most powerful virus in the arcade!
He didn't want power, he didn't want revenge, he didn't want justice or recognition or to right some cosmic wrong. He wanted to race go-karts, and he burned down everything around him to make sure nobody could stop him. Ken lost a girlfriend to a bee. Lotso fell apart over a lost toy. Bellwether drafted a conspiracy. Syndrome built a kill list. Scar committed murder. Tai Lung fought an army. Ernesto poisoned his best friend. Turbo rewrote reality itself. If you think we missed anyone who deserves a spot on this list, drop them in the comments. And if you want more of this, make sure you subscribe and watch this one next.